Hi there, it's Martin Ward again from Robson Adler. I'm joined again by Graham Purvis.
Hello.
This week we're going to cover just some topical things that have came up in the week. A couple of them finance related, COVID related, and just a couple of other bits and pieces thrown in. Want to start us off on a topic, Graham?
Well, should we just have a look at the furloughing scheme and just a bit of an update on what's happened this week on that, and some more questions that we've had in?
Yeah,
good place to start.
I suppose it's quite topical because today was the first day that some people started to receive their actual grants. They've started to come through now from claims that were done, presumably at the start of the process last week. Time will tell whether they'll all come in within what's essentially 5 working days. I think as the numbers grow, there's a possibility it might take longer, but that's new today.
It is, but you know, they said that it would take 6 working days, which would be today will be the first day for somebody who'd done it last Monday. And I think cynical people, of course I wasn't one of them, were like questioning whether that was going to be actually feasible and realistic. But fair play to HMRC, they seem to have done what they said they were going to do. We don't have any. I don't know if HMRC have published anything about the number of payments they've made today, but we know.
I haven't seen anything yet.
Yeah, but we've had a bit of feedback that a fair few have received their money, so that's all positive.
I think the first signs on this were probably Friday evening. There was rumours that some people's online banking was showing pending payments payments coming in. So I think that's when people first realised that this was actually going to happen. Of course, HMRC won't formally tell you, I suspect. The money will probably just land in your account. There's been a couple of interesting questions as well, mind you. There's within the WhatsApp group and of clients. Someone was saying, how do we keep a record of who we've actually claimed for and what period? Of course, the answer to that is there is no formal method. It doesn't confirm your claim at the end in any official way. Once you've clicked submit, it's gone. So the best advice there is to print the screen as you go, print the number of employees, print the period, print the figures, or take screen grabs, because otherwise you won't have a record of what you've claimed. Now, obviously, you'll have how you calculate it in the first place, but there's no official kind of confirmation from the system.
I've got another question here, which is, how should a business with both weekly and monthly paid furloughed employees proceed if they're only allowed to make one claim for a period under the scheme? If the business claimed for 3 weeks in total for weekly paid staff, say from the 2nd of April to the 23rd of April, does that then mean it cannot claim for monthly paid staff from the 1st of April to the 30th of April?
I'm not sure that the system is as complicated as people think. I think as long as a person doesn't turn up on a claim twice for overlapping periods, I'm not sure HMRC are going to be overly concerned.
Yeah, I think my take on that, I think you're only permitted to make one claim every 3 weeks, one claim per PAYE scheme every 3 weeks. So you would pick the furlough period that covers all of the monthly and as much of the weeklies as you can, and put through the rest of the weeklies in the next batch in 3 weeks' time. Yeah.
So one important thing is at the moment is they say that you can't amend a claim as well. Although there was word from the ICAEW tax faculty who have asked HMRC if that is a possibility, and apparently the ability to amend for future claims will be available, but we do not have a process in place at the moment, is what the revenue said. So I would imagine if they're going to allow you to amend a claim, they'd have to let you see what you've previously claimed. And that might answer a bunch of these questions all in one. If you can go back in to see what you've already done, you'd have to see that to be able to amend it. So in theory, they might get there. I think the fact that it's up and running and working is a miracle anyway.
But very simply, if you've made a cock up, then at the minute you can't go back in and amend that cock up. Presumably, you could do the subsequent adjustment in the subsequent claim, maybe.
Yeah, well, like I say, I think for HMRC, apparently they are checking. They do call people and sometimes ask questions. I would imagine if they called and asked you, in the example you opened with, you would say, well, you know what, this is what I did. The monthlies are all in that claim because that's the period in which they were paid. And I suspect HMRC will be able to tell from previous RTI filings. Because don't forget, they'll have had a weekly filing and then a kind of fourth week with the monthly and weeklies on. So they'll see that pattern. And I think as long as you're consistent in your approach and you can demonstrate where it came from, I think you'll probably be all right.
Yeah. Can I share another question? So this is a question in a forum that we're involved with. Can an employer opt not to claim the employer's allowance whilst furloughing is being accessed and switch the employer's allowance claim on once the furloughing ends, as long as in the remainder of the tax year when they will have built up £4,000 in employer's NI to cover the allowance? So the answer from the person in the forum on that is essentially we don't have any clarity on it at the moment. They're suggesting you would put the employment allowance to one side at the moment and turn the claim off in your payroll software. But there is no hard and fast rule, is there?
Yeah, the rules on claiming the allowance are that it has to be renewed for this year for reasons which I'm not fully aware of, if I'm honest. Possibly because I think it's increased. Or maybe there's been a change in the related employer rules or something like that. I would have to check that. But what you can do in theory is wait until, say, September to claim it, assuming you're going to have £4,000 worth of ERS NI in the second half of the tax year. What that would prevent from happening is the allowance being washed away against ERS NI on furloughed pay, which they wouldn't need to then reimburse you for. So in theory, you can get your employment allowance twice. I suspect HMRC will pick up on that because that can't be what they intended. But at the moment, there's a bit of ambiguity as to whether that's how it's going to work. I know Rebecca Bennyworth has talked about this, who's a bit of in the tax world anyway, quite famous. Yeah. So she's her finger's quite on the pulse with these things.
Not as much of a guru as you are. Not as much of a guru as you are, though, Marty.
Obviously not, but she's slightly more well known outside of the Northeast, let's say. And so she's mentioned it. That means people like the tax faculty, the Institute of Tax, they're all looking at it. So I'll be surprised if that didn't hit the revenues desk pretty soon. And it might just be something that comes out the wash down the line.
I've got one final thing on furloughing because it's like, you know, we don't want to flog this to death, essentially. But if you've got less than 100 employees, you have to enter each one manually, don't you, on the system?
Again, that's something.
Yeah, go on. So I think, I was just going to say, I think the accounting professional bodies have asked HMRC to see if we can really change the system to, you know, allow a spreadsheet to be uploaded where you've got fewer than 100 employees. Because if you've got, say, 80 employees, it takes you a fair bit of time to manually input a line for each of those people.
Yeah, I think we've one of our larger payrolls we do has got something like 80 to 90 weekly employees, which of course the cash burden on a weekly payroll is far greater than a monthly one. So you could argue just wait till the end of the month and do a claim for the entire month. But of course the employer needs the money earlier than a monthly payroll. And sitting typing out 80 to 90 weekly employee details will just, it's a lot of work that didn't really need to be there. So I think the revenue said they're going to look at that as well, but arguably the scheme only lasts a couple of months. They may just say, well, is it worth the effort? But who knows, we'll see. Another related question to that is, how do you reclaim for an employee that doesn't have an NI number? This came up on one of our clients who's got 3 members of staff under the age of 16. I think it's a hotel up the coast somewhere. And of course, they don't have an NI number, and you have to have an NI number to put it on. So the Revenue did release, there is a phone number you can call to make a claim over the telephone, or they did confirm that if you've got over 100 employees, if you're uploading a spreadsheet, you can't simply miss the NI number off, and it'll still go through. So yeah, I wouldn't fancy giving a 90 weekly payroll employee details over the telephone. That would be just as laborious, but that is apparently a way around it where you haven't got an NI number.
Mm-hmm. So who wouldn't have an NI number, like school children? Maybe.
Well, yeah. Well, I suppose people under the age of 16, and I think if you've recently came to the country, you get issued a temporary NI number, and I think we've seen some of them fail. It was the same client actually, and I think it failed because the person had been issued a permanent NI number, but just hadn't updated the employer. So what we had to do on that one is there was a whole range of other employees where we needed the money back. So we'll put the claim in and miss those 4 people off, and they'll go on the next claim as just, we'll just double up their element on the next claim. There wasn't really anything else would do.
Okay.
That's probably it. Furlough-wise, I think people are probably sick of hearing furlough. Is anything else happening this week?
Well, I've tried to, as you know, keep abreast of some of the stuff in the news, which is not related to tax or accounting or anything like that. So I found an interesting story that I wanted to actually share with you. Quite a unique story, actually. So I'll just read it. It's not very long. I think this was in the Guardian. So it said, a British woman in a long-term relationship with a 92-year-old German chandelier has been told that her attraction to historic light fittings is not considered to be a protected sexual orientation.
Is that the end?
That's it, yeah. So, like, not to pardon the pun, but a bit of light relief in these dark times.
Well, that's about as highbrow as although yours is at least, because gender identity and everything is in fact in the news quite often, isn't it? The story I brought to the table was is just as funny, I suppose. North Korea has had to spend the day frantically trying to persuade everyone that Kim Jong-un hasn't in fact died after there was a fake news story that he died. Of course, you never know with North Korea. For all we know, he has died. It's quite a secretive place. But I think your chandelier story takes some beating there, Graham.
It's unique. It's unique. So every week we'll try and look out for some story that's hidden away, which is not related to the current situation. Give a bit of light, as I say, a bit of light. You get it, light relief chandelier.
Shine a bit of light on that story.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, I think a lot of people will switch off at that one, Graham.
That was another story, but it was again a bit more business related. But again, I don't know if you've seen this. So, an accountancy firm, Ernst Young EY, has been ordered to pay nearly $11 million in damages to a whistleblower who claimed it covered up evidence of money laundering. So this guy, he was basically forced out of his job back in 2014. And a year earlier, this chap had led an audit that had discovered Dubai's biggest gold refiner, Colotti, had paid out a total of $5 billion in cash in 2012. This chap argued that was evidence of money laundering, but EY didn't report the activity to the authorities. So
$5 billion in cash.
Yeah.
$5 billion.
So this chap saying, yeah, that looks a little bit dodgy.
Well, a lot of people may not realise why that's a story. Of course, us professionals, as we all believe it or not, are actually duty bound to report anything that looks suspicious. We've got no say on it. If we find something suspicious, in the course
Yeah,
of business, we have to report it up the line.
it's like whistleblowing, isn't it?
Yeah. And surely anyone would argue $5 billion in cash is slightly strange. It's not like you can buy expensive stock in cash. You know, they're not paying for huge metal orders or whatever it is in cash, presumably. So, I mean, $5 billion, that's a lot of money, isn't it? What did the firm do? What was the business?
Gold refiner.
Gold refiner. Unless they paid all their employees cash, I don't know. Might be a lot of very rich employees running around.
We don't want to cast, obviously, aspersions or anything like that on other accountancy firms, but you know, those stories are quite common nowadays. I'm finding. Yeah. Anyways,
and just for clarity, if any of our clients, we see them taking billions of pounds out in cash, we will have to report that. Make no mistake. Is anything else happening?
Right. Well, you know, on a personal level, what's been the highlight of your week, Marty? Would you say in the last 7 days? A good thing that's happened to you, either an uplifting thing, a bit of fun, the thing that's pleased you most. We're concentrating on the positive.
Yeah, no, I've got a couple of positives. We managed to get some flour for the first time since lockdown started. Wow. So there'll be some biscuits made in the Wardle household soon. That was probably the biggest news, followed closely by, a lot of people might not realise, but I've actually been pretty ill. And I got the all clear on, I can't remember now, 2 days ago. I got a letter from the consultant saying basically I'm there's nothing wrong with this. Of course, I'm fat and addicted to prescription medication, but I can solve those in time.
Yeah, I wouldn't, whether there's anything wrong with you, I think that's a moot question. But no, well done to you, man. It's been I know what it's been like for you. It's been a hard slog, so it's good news. Tough, but,
so of course, the mixed blessing is I'm now allowed to play out, but no one is allowed to play out. So I've been pretty housebound anyway for months, so I'm used to this whole idea of lockdown. But yeah, so it's been nice that in theory I'll be allowed out now when people are allowed out. We'll see. What about you and Graham? Something positive to end the week on? Or?
Well, there's positive, but then are we a bit conflicted? So obviously it wouldn't have passed you by that we're in the midst potentially of NUFC being taken over.
Oh yeah, I did see that.
Saudi interests. So on a very personal level, I'm a great supporter of the Mike Ashley out movement. So on that basis, I'll be pleased to see him go. And obviously there's issues in terms of the morality and ethics of potentially the new regime coming in. Is that something that football supporters should be kind of, holding people to account for when our own government and our own powers that be deem it okay to have links with that regime? So I don't want to get into that. It's a bit too heavy, but that's a positive thing on the football front for me as a Newcastle fan.
You would rather all the players in future operate in cash than Mike Ashley run the club, is what you're saying.
Absolutely. Okay. Obviously that's a joke. Yeah.
That is a joke. Yes. Right. We don't recommend anyone pays. I mean, that takes us full circle. Actually, we're back out to furlough, because one interesting thing that this has brought out, just in speaking with neighbours, speaking to clients, and speaking to other people, is of course if you weren't legitimate in your activities, none of the grants or schemes help you in any way. So I'm trying to work with someone to demonstrate they were employed, but they haven't got any pay slips. It turns out they weren't on a payroll. They worked for someone for 8 years. They're not getting any furloughed pay. So of course they haven't got many options really other than to go to the HMRC and basically report their employer, or just accept they won't get any money. It doesn't leave these people in a very good position. And I think another good example is something that is an unexpected one for a lot of people is, there's a lot of self-employed people. I'll not name any particular sectors, but you can probably guess most of them, certainly where they're cash-based, who don't necessarily declare their full profit. Of course, they can't work now, but they're only going to get 80% of declared profits in the grant. And of course, that's causing some people some difficulties. And then the third part of the same black market, I suppose, is the people who are on benefits, who were also working cash in hand. They can't work now, but on paper, they're no worse off. But of course, they've got less money. They're telling their landlords they can't pay the rent. But in theory, they're no worse off on paper. So I wonder whether this will change the dynamics of the way people are paid. I wonder whether the black market will change going forward. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I doubt it. Personally, I doubt it. I mean, it's, yeah. It was kind of ironic, I thought, that HMRC gave people who hadn't filed an 18-19 return, so that a tax return the year 5th of April 2019, if you hadn't filed it by the filing deadline, which is the 31st of January this year, they were still giving you, a little bit of a, what's the word?
Period
amnesty.
of grace.
Yeah, an amnesty.
4 weeks, didn't they, from...
To get your return in, yeah.
Yeah, we covered this the other week, didn't we?
Yeah.
But it'd be interesting to see.
Now,
was it?
It has. Yeah, I think it'll have passed now. But it'll be quite interesting to see how many people first came into the SAC, came into the self-assessment system for the first time.
Yeah.
In 2018-19.
Well, yeah, because there was the whole dilemma about amending returns, and I mean, as far as I'm aware, we weren't asked to amend a single return, were we? We've not been asked to.
Not that
I would imagine there's a lot of people out there asking their accountants to amend returns to try and increase the profits. I don't think we've been asked once that I'm aware of, which is it's quite nice because that's against the spirit, really, isn't it?
It is. I mean, it is. So you've got, this is going to kick off the self-employment stuff as again payments in June, I think, isn't it, Marty? Again, nothing that you can do as the taxpayer.
No.
As we stand at the minute, you just get advised from HMRC of the amount of the grant that they're going to give to you based on what you've submitted to them on your tax returns. I think something, again, just very topical tonight, there was this announcement for your sort of micro business, your smaller end businesses, of this bounce back loan.
Yeah, I saw. I
don't know if you see that. Yeah, so
I saw it coming, but I haven't had much chance to look at the detail. Can you give us a couple of minutes on it, or?
Yeah, the detail is very
sketchy.
Word sparse, basically. So I think you're able to borrow between $2,000 and $50,000. The government are going to guarantee 100% of the loan. There's going to be no fees and there's going to be no interest to pay for the first 12 months. The loan term will be up to 6 years. Like I say, no repayments in the first 12 months. And they've said the government will work with lenders to secure the low interest rate for the remaining period of the loan. Be interesting to see again how that pans out. Going to be delivered through accredited lenders, so whether those are the same lenders that are on the Corona Business Interruption Loan panel, if you like, I don't know about that. Eligibility, you've got to be UK business. You've got to have been negatively impacted by coronavirus, and you could not be in what's called an undertaking in difficulty on the 31st of December 2019.
What does that mean? So if you were struggling already, you can't argue you're struggling because of coronavirus.
Correct. Yeah. So if you are insolvent, at the end of the calendar year 2019, you're not going to be able to apply for it. There's some people who can't apply for it. Banks, insurers.
public sector bodies, further
yeah,
education,
yeah,
anything state funded really. If you're already
anything
state
state
funded,
yeah.
and
And if you've gone through that, if you've got a loan through the Corona Business Interruption Loan Scheme, you can't get this loan through the bounce. Do you remember Ian Dowie? Remember him? He was like a footballer. He was assistant manager at Newcastle, and he had bounce back ability was his phrase. So I wonder if he's been instrumental in using his great acumen to pull this together behind the scenes. You never know.
Well, you know, Kevin Bacon's 7 circles of separation. He probably knows Rishi Sunak very well, I would imagine.
Strange times.
And
just to finish off
on this. Oh, go on.
No, go on. I think I've done with that. It's not going to open until the 4th of May.
Well, one question I've had already, and to be honest, I had on the C-bills as well, the interruption loans, is can this be used by people who have been affected, they meet all the criteria, but they have cash in the bank? And at first it might seem like greed, but the logic here is, let's say you were a business that spent the last 10 years saving up to buy commercial property, and that money is now depleted entirely because of coronavirus. You've been affected, you've lost all your reserves, but ironically, you've been able to pay all your bills. You haven't failed, but you will come out of this 100 grand weaker than you were. Could you use this to, you know, go out and say, well, I was going to do this with the money, I can't do that now, can I?
Okay, well, all I can say on that is 2 things. One, it says further details will be published shortly.
Yeah.
As always. Secondly, though, they've said it's like a 1 or 2 page form. So it's, you know, it's not, on the face of it anyway, it's not going to be as onerous to apply for this loan as it would for the Corona Business Interruption Loan.
Well, that could work for and against, though, couldn't it?
It could, yeah.
It could go for, because you don't have to give much detail. But if one of the questions, which will surely be on there, is how much have you got, you won't be able to explain what that money was for, why it was prior allocated. So it depending on the form, it could go either way, couldn't it?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's you know, it's all about ultimately what is the crux of why this support has been put into place, and it's to help people who are in trouble, essentially, you know. And it's just, where do you draw that line in the sand?
Yeah,
obviously you can't be in too much trouble, or you can't even get into this bounce back loan.
Is it worth touching on? You mentioned if you were insolvent as at the end of December. Was it 31st of December? Yeah. So is that basically a limited company with negative reserves then, Graham?
Yeah, I would have thought so. But
so you could have a company that was making money, but because the director's taking too much out in dividends, might have negative reserves. The bank might look at that in a simplistic way and say, you're struggling because you took too much money out.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, I think undertaking and difficulty is defined somewhere. Maybe our accountant colleagues can shed some light on exactly what that means. You know, I'm pretty sure it'll be some measurable thing that you call. You know, you got to hit certain things to be called that, to be defined as an undertaking and difficulty. So we're showing our lack of knowledge there, Marty. But
yeah, but people don't tune in for the technical side, Graham. Obviously.
Clearly.
I could have stopped that after people don't tune in, and it still would have been a valid sentence.
You got any other questions?
I don't think there was. I don't think there was much else. Someone did say I was on my way to typing out 30 employees in the furlough grant claim. Lost me. Either the connection or the system went down. I had no option but to start again. They're kind of saying, is there anything I can do? And again, I don't think there is. I think it's one of those things that once you start, you have to finish. You can't leave it part completed and then come back to it. Just so you've got to be careful. Got to have all the information with you before you start. One thing we do know, though, which might not have necessarily been known to a lot of people, is if you haven't yet made your March or April claims, you can just make a March and April combined claim by putting the full period in. Obviously, if you're doing that, be careful to get all employees included. You might have a different set of employees in March to you have in April, combine them to get a total list. But you can do that, and there's people who've had the payments shown as pending where they had done that. So again, this is where I was going back earlier. I'm not sure how complex the portal is. I think this is why the revenue are checking each one, because it's not that complicated on the way in. The portal doesn't have any complex formula behind it. It just lets you put a block of data in, and I think there must be all, maybe not all, but a large percentage getting manually checked.
But you said before, I think, didn't you? And I think you have experienced yourself a phone call when you've done a claim. HMRC are doing a little bit of spot checking. Is that right?
Yeah. It wasn't me. It's someone I know in the profession had said they did receive a call. They asked a couple of very basic details. They didn't go on to what it was, but it could be something like there isn't a lot of guidance. So one of the questions on the portal is the employer's registered address. Now, does that mean where the pay-as-you-earn scheme is registered, or if it's a company, is it the registered office? So they could be different quite easily. So I would imagine that's the type of thing the revenue would call up. The form does ask who should we ring if there's any queries.
Yeah.
And that's the type of thing they'd ring up and say, the address isn't matching ours. Let's, try again. And I would imagine if you give the right address, you'll get over the line quite easily.
Just on that again, back on the furlough, I think there was some maybe confusion or lack of clarity about one of the screens after asking where you've inputted your bank account details, that then asks you for a postcode. And that postcode isn't the postcode of your bank, is it? It's the postcode of the employer of the
employers, right? Yeah. It's what they've done is they've created something quite quickly, which is not what the revenue are known for, to be honest. The last time anything like this, it was probably RTI, or probably stuff like the online VAT filing. These things spend years in trials and pilots before they get anywhere near the public. Now, admittedly, they're probably more complex, the actual systems. But to be fair, they said they would do it and get payments to people by the end of April. That's what they've done.
Are you going to doff your cap to them? Are you going to give them a bit of praise?
I think I will. Yeah. Well, I think whether it's HMRC that needs the praise or someone needs some praise. But and all in all, what's quite interesting is I think most people I've spoken to when we've been interviewing people in businesses, even those who haven't actually had any help, haven't been overly critical so far of the government. They've kind of said, well, employees are catered for, the self-employed who've been self-employed for a while are catered for. And it's not every employee, and it's not all of the money, but there's a lot of money going into these areas. Grants are going to people who pay business rates. Bigger grants are going to people who pay in the retail sector and the food industry, etc., who've had to close. Now, whether that's enough to keep these people going forever, but it'll certainly have saved a lot of them. And I've spoken to company directors or one of the areas that are perhaps the hardest hit, because whilst they can't furlough themselves, their salaries are normally very low. But even company directors I've spoken to don't seem overly critical. They realise that everyone can't be helped all the time. And I suppose we're saying this as people who, we're not really benefiting that much from most things, are we? So
no, nothing.
We're quite lucky that people seem to be taking this downtime, getting their records ready and getting them submitted in good time, so get loads of accounts done. And I said that kind of jestingly a couple of weeks back, but it does seem to be happening actually. We have got clients who have used this downtime to get their records in, which means they'll get the tax returns quicker, they'll get their payments on account quicker, they can plan better. So that is one good thing, I suppose.
Okie dokie. So after saying we're finished talking about furlough about 15 minutes ago, we'll come back to it. But I think we're going to wind it up there because I know you've got a very important quiz to go to now, Marty. So
absolutely, I'm a quiz master extraordinaire in tonight's quiz on the street. So
he has one for you. Again, I'm not sure. So how many time zones does Russia cover?
Well, that's a good question.
Is it?
I'm going to say it'll probably cover one or two, maybe one past us, probably to about Australia, if not.
I'm going to have to hurry you. I'm going to have to hurry you.
Sorry, 10, 11. I'll stick with 11.
No way. You've obviously just Googled that while in your hand off screen, haven't you? No, it is 11, apparently.
This is why I'm the quiz master.
Have you just Googled that?
You can check the playback. How can I? Where did I Google that? You're just disappointed that I've proven yet again to be your superior intellectually.
Again, just on a historical level, as you know, I'm big into that. I don't know how accurate that is, and I don't know whether maybe Russia does span the coast to coast. Certainly the USSR did, but I don't know about Russia itself, but maybe it is. I'm just talking.
Because St. Petersburg's quite far this way, and that's the side that's been chipped away at, so it's probably
11 time zones. So Marty, well done, lad. Well done.
Are you
the quiz master tonight?
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't put that in. I think everyone would probably get that.
Of course. Righty-ho, we better wind up. Okay, so should we just say, we'll do this next week, the same unscripted drivel coming out, but
barely scripted, I think is it?
Yeah. But if anybody's got any questions or any issues, anything at all, doesn't have to be about tax or accounting. As you can see, we're pretty intelligent couple of chaps. We can probably put a hand to anything. So just ask away. Would you like to add anything, Marty?
No, that's absolutely fine. Thanks for watching, and see you next time.
Good night.